on the Iranian nuclear facilities?
Well, of course, there's going to be a news conference at the Pentagon in 1 hour's time. Pete Hegseth will lead that. He, of course, is the Defence Secretary, and we should get more information at that point. What we do know from Donald Trump and an interview he gave to a right-wing TV station overnight is that, yes, bunker buster bombs were used. That's why the B-2s were involved, but also a number of Tomahawk missiles were fired from submarines. Donald Trump said 400 miles away, so somewhere in the region of 550 kilometres away, which would put them right in the Gulf, heading towards Iran. Donald Trump declared that this was a huge success. People I've been speaking to this morning suggest that he doesn't know that for definite. There will certainly be the first intelligence reports from the area, but he can't say whether or not everything has been damaged or completely destroyed, which may well open up the prospect of further attacks. And certainly Donald Trump spoke about that overnight. There's great concern here in the United States, of course, because just 3 months ago, Tulsi Gabbard, who is the Director of National Intelligence, told a congressional hearing that American intelligence has concluded that Iran was not working towards a nuclear bomb and the programme hadn't been restarted since 2013. Donald Trump, just a couple of days ago, said that was wrong. So Americans are worried that the United States is being dragged into another war in the Middle East, something Donald Trump said was stupid and he would avoid on the basis of faulty intelligence that has been supplied to Donald Trump.
Alan, I know there were questions within his party about a strike on Iran. The MAGA base and the Republican side was not on board, many Democrats as well. Are there any questions this morning on whether Trump's actions last night were constitutional?
Well, let me tell you that Ro Khanna, who's a Democratic congressman, is putting forward a debate on the War Powers Act in Congress on Monday. He is supported by a Republican, Thomas Massey. They're effectively saying they don't want to see any more conflict and a de-escalation. So they're going to push that through Congress. It's unlikely to get passed, to be honest. The question about whether or not this is constitutional, well, it is. Donald Trump can take action if he believes that the United States is about to be attacked, and he can take order an attack in America's self-defence. Certainly, if it was to be prolonged, if it was to be sustained, then he would have to go to Congress and get their support and get Congress to declare war as requested in the Constitution. But it's rare for there to be a problem if a president, and many have done it, orders an attack. Where he might fall foul, of course, is under international law. He has got to show that there was an immediate threat to the United States. And that is why he took this action. And given what we heard from the Director of National Intelligence in March, that might be a bit hard to prove. But of course, in many of these cases, when you say one country has breached international law, it is very rare that they're held to account.
Thank you for that, Alan Fisher, there with the latest from Washington. Let's move on, because UN nuclear watchdog chief Rafael Grossi has posted on X saying he is calling an emergency meeting of the IAEA Board of Governors after the U.S. military strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. The off-site radiation levels in Iran are not reported to have increased, but the IAEA says it will provide more information if it becomes available. Let's get more with Abbas Aslani, a senior research fellow at the Center for Middle East Strategic Studies. He joins us now from our Tehran bureau. Many thanks for your time. So really the ball now in Iran's court as to how we go forward from here and how the situation evolves. Listening to the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi earlier, where he talked about how there'd been a betrayal of diplomacy. He called President Trump's administration as a warmongering administration. Does all this give us a sense at all about how Iran is likely to respond and what comes next?
Well, Malene, we are in a kind of wait-and-see mode to see how things will proceed. You know, at the time that Iran was about to engage in diplomatic process with the United States, Israelis disrupted the process. Next week when Iran was engaging in these discussions with European parties, the United States, following those discussions, initiated an aggression against the country. So the walls of distrust between the two sides have been standing very tall. So these kind of actions somehow exacerbates and complicates the situation, making it very difficult to have a meaningful discussions. Iran thinks that the United States, at least for some time, have been using negotiations as a cover to impose pressure as well as to initiate an attack against the country in order to weaken the country at the negotiating table. So that's why the country is not willing to engage in those discussions by the time that it will see that if it's able to establish a deterrence against any upcoming future attacks from the outside. But at the moment that we speak, I think the country is preparing for response against that aggression. We are seeing that attacks against Israel continuing, and it is stated that that will continue in more crushing manner. But in addition to the military response, Iran is also considering other responses in other fronts, including, its policies in terms of nuclear matter. It could be withdrawal from the Non-Proliferation Treaty. It could be scaling up nuclear activities. It could be decreasing the level of cooperation with the IAEA. And Iran is also urging condemnation from international community and other countries in order to go against this action, which could have repercussions far beyond the immediate belligerents in the region. It can undermine regional security as well as global.
Right. If I can get in, Abbas Aslani. It is clear that the trust is not there. It doesn't exist, given the events that we've seen. But Iran is in a corner, though. It is weaker than it was a year ago. Its allies in the region have been dismantled to a large extent by Israel. So do you think it will reach a point where it will have to return to the negotiating table?
Malin, Iran has no option but to respond. No response is not an option for Tehran because, this is not about
yes, but how long can it respond? How long can it respond given that Israel, with the U.S., is a bigger threat?
By the time that it's able to stop further aggressions come from the American-Israeli side. Because, this could, a ceasefire, a truce at the moment will not be the end, and it will be a kind of inviting further, attacks and strikes from Israeli and American sides. And from now and then, the United States is going to attack, a part of Iran, whether it's economic infrastructure, whether it's related to nuclear or even civilian infrastructure or residential building. So that's why Tehran insists that in order to stop this process, it needs to inflict a kind of pain and cost to the other side. In that case, a balance could be established in order to stop further aggression. Unless, engaging in negotiations at the moment will be a kind of weakness and a political surrender, which the cost of such kind of surrender even could be much more than military harms in a likely, escalatory war.
And what about ordinary Iranians across the country? Are they on the same page as the Iranian leadership?
Maybe the initial calculus back in Tel Aviv and Washington was that if Israel engages in a war against the country and the U.S. bombs parts of Iran, including the nuclear facilities, this will provoke the people to protest against the political system and the government. But in practice, this happened to be something different, and they united backing the government's response against Israel as well as the United States, because even those who have been critical of the government do not see this about, the political system, whether it's a Islamic or non-Islamic, regime in the country. They are seeing this as a part of, efforts and attempts to weaken the country, and this is about the dismemberment of the Iran, and that's why they are somehow rallying around the flag against this external threat.
OK, thank you for your time. Abbas Aslani, Senior Research Fellow at the Center for Middle East Strategic Studies, speaking to us there from Tehran. Well, Israel's conflict with Iran is costing hundreds of millions of dollars a day. That's according to early estimates reported by the Wall Street Journal. Israel uses its David Sling defense system to shoot down missiles, drones and aircraft, and each launch costs around $700,000. For long-range ballistic threats, Israel relies on the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 systems at a cost of $3 to $4 million per missile. F-35 fighter jets are also being used in long-range missions. An hour in the air adds about $10,000, not including fuel or weapons. The Aaron Institute for Economic Policy says if this conflict drags on for a month, it could cost Israel up to $12 billion. And repairing damage from Iranian missile strikes could cost more than $400 million, as hundreds of buildings have been hit. Let's go to Yossi Mekelberg. He's a senior consulting fellow at Chatham House and an expert on Israeli politics. He joins us from London. So no doubt there that Israel's war on Iran is expensive. It costs Iran and its people. How much does that matter to them?
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon. There are no cheap wars. Wars are very expensive. But, the ethos right now in Israel, that this is a war, is existential war. It's about the survival of the country. It can't survive with Iran that is in a possession of nuclear weapons. And the only way forward, according to this government, and most Jewish Israelis subscribe to this opinion. The only way forward was actually using military force. So in this sense, the economic calculus is sidelined, at least for now. Obviously, the consequences will be seen later. Some in the army industry probably will tell you if Israel performs well, there will be many countries queuing to learn from Israel, probably purchase more arms from Israel.
And Yossi, it was very evident that this is what the Israelis wanted. They wanted the United States support on the military front. They have now come through on that aspect. Is it enough, though, or do they want more? Do they want the U.S. to continue attacking Iran and perhaps even lead to an overthrow of the regime?
Probably the answer is yes. And Israel will, I think, we look at three objectives. One is the issue of nuclear and prevent Iran from ever developing nuclear military capability. Second, to reduce Iran's influence in the region, axis of resistance, its ability to support a movement that can harm Israel. And the third one, which is gradually evolves, and we hear more and more about it, is regime change. But all of this is not necessarily only in the hands of Israel. it's also the United States. Now it's not only a war between Israel and Iran. As of yesterday,